if you're looking at the economic data to try to figure out what the market's going to do, you're doing it backwards. You need to look at the market to try to figure out what the economy's doing.
As I look at what's going on, gentlemen, it appears to me that the curtains on the stage are about to open for the second act of the tariff drama. And we have no idea where the tariff drama, what act two is going to be or go. So maybe in your broken crystal ball, Joe, maybe you can add something to what you expect.
I don't know what to expect. I don't think anybody knows what to expect. Look, I think that there's a couple of things I wrote about this over the weekend because I just think it's kind of like I don't know the tariffs that he announced on Friday against Brazil. Just I mean, it's like I don't know, they're ridiculous. When you look at the law that he used to apply these things, it's like really I don't see anything in this law about interfering in some other country's judicial system. I don't know, because your buddy's getting prosecuted. I don't know. Look, Brazil has a history of prosecuting ex-presidents. Lula went to prison for God's sake. So, and he's back being president. So I don't know why anybody would get involved in that. It's just a mess. Um, God, back in the 80s, there was a military dictatorship in Brazil. So I don't know, man. Why he's getting involved in that, I have no idea. But my point is that there's no reason you can't use that as justification to put 50% tariffs on Brazil. It's not going to stand. There's no way, whether courts rule it illegal or whatever the case may be. So the market's ignoring it, and I think that kind of the same thing with the Mexico and EU tariffs announced over the weekend as well. But I want to head in a little bit different direction. I wonder, being as that Scott Bessent worked for George Soros for many years, and George Soros was a student of Karl Popper back many years ago, and he developed his theory of reflexivity, which basically says that the narrative shapes the market. In other words, he always said, if you're looking at the economic data to try to figure out what the market's going to do, you're doing it backwards. You need to look at the market to try to figure out what the economy's doing. The market tells you stuff. That's where I learned that many, many years ago, because it is absolutely true. The market is wisdom of crowds and so forth. So there's also the idea, though, that if that's true, if the market shapes the economy, then well, then it stands to reason that if you can use narrative to direct the market, then you can direct the economy too, simply by talking. Now, Scott Bessent worked for George Soros for many years, and he knows the theory of reflexivity. Absolutely must know it, because there's no way you work for that guy for 20 plus years and don't know what he's talking about. So when you see Scott Bessent on TV, he is this almost I don't know how to describe him. He seems very sure of himself, put it that way. I don't want to call it arrogance, because I don't think that's what it is. It's just he's very calm, and he talks about things, and he says, we're going to do all this deregulation, and we're going to get growth, and it's going to be growth with no inflation, or with low inflation. And he just keeps talking that way. And I wonder if the whole idea here with the tariff announcements and then the backing off and all these things, I wonder if all of it might be, I'm going to give them the huge benefit of the doubt and wonder if they're not trying to orchestrate all of this. If all of this is not just, as you said, an act. Maybe this is act two. Maybe this is a play, or as Steve has styled it, a reality TV show. But I do wonder about the psychological aspects here of what Scott Bessent is trying to do as Treasury Secretary. I will say that unfortunately for him, it doesn't seem to be working in some ways. His big thing has been he's wanted to get interest rates down, long-term interest rates. Short-term interest rates don't matter. He needs to get long-term interest rates down, because that helps the housing market, helps finance the debt longer term, all these things. He needs to get long-term interest rates down. It's not working. The long-term interest rates have been stuck in the high end of that, the top fourth of that range it's been in for 3 years, up closer to 5% than 4, put it that way. So it's not really working yet, but I do wonder if that's what they're trying to do. And if that's true, then these announcements on tariffs don't really mean anything because we don't know where they're finally going to land until they finally do get down to the end and say, well, here's what the final deal is, and we're actually going to do this. So I don't know. I hate to think that actually the Treasury Secretary is doing that because it seems a little manipulative, but it's a possibility. So anyway, just musing. I don't know any more than anybody else does, and I just keep doing exactly what George Soros said. I watch the market to figure out the economy, and so far, not a whole lot of change. And that's one of the things we've talked about many, many times. Interest rates haven't changed that much. The dollar has, come down, and that does have an impact. But in general, not a whole lot has changed. And despite everything that's going on, just not a whole lot has changed. So I don't know. It's interesting, interesting thought anyway.
Steve, there hasn't been a lot of market reaction to all of this. So is this a case where maybe there's smoke but no fire?
I actually think there's a bit here of this is the sort of thing the market's not especially good with. And let me go back to like one of the things I've done in this life, and that's been doing I've done some investor relations consulting, including occasionally writing an earnings call script or working on that. And the market does a very good job of taking of bottom up, of taking what companies are experiencing, what they're projecting, looking at their supply chains, what's going on with their customers. There are analysts both on the sell side and some buy side guys that really know those sectors inside and out, and they do a pretty good job with that. What's companies investing? What are they spending? What are they seeing from their customer demand? And then projecting that out, maybe as much as 18 months, but at least giving you a good look ahead for 3 or 6 months. Market does a pretty good job with that. When something like this came on, I can tell you that as far as working on the script with management, they didn't know. They'd kind of like go and be like, "Oh, what's this guy saying about, in this case, tariffs? This major macro development that this isn't something we're close to. This isn't something I pick up the phone and I talk to my major customer or I talk to the guy, in X division or Y division, and I get a good feel on it, and then I can like, talk in my analyst conversations or my call, I can update people on that. That again then gets reflected in the market. This would be the sort of stuff that they kind of just shrug their shoulder and be like, I don't know, what can we find out? Like what's a leading economist saying? And then they maybe like quote that economist. So this kind of top-down stuff, the market, it just in my experience, this is the sort of thing it's not great at pricing in. Whereas the bottom-up stuff, it's really efficient at pricing in. And when you look at the second half, I kind of shrug my shoulders, and working with management, we kind of shrug our shoulders, and we'd quote somebody from Morgan Stanley or something like that, and then try to deviate the conversation to our own supply chain and putting a happy face on things so people kept buying our stock and supporting it. And we'd never come out and say we got no effing clue what's going on here. We'd be like, well, this is what the experts say, and we're still confident with our customer data and blah blah blah, and then deviate the conversation to what we're seeing bottom up. But when I look at this, I don't know, right? How much are importers going to eat? How much is going to get passed on to companies? How much are they going to take out of their profits when they get hit with that? How much are they going to pass on to consumers? How much are we going to see in consumer price inflation? Um, you know, you got those variables, then you got the variable of with the Trump show. I don't know what he's going to say Tuesday or next Thursday or the following Thursday. There's that level of uncertainty. I think there just is a lot of uncertainty. The market's having a very difficult time pricing in because this is the sort of data it doesn't price in very well. And I think we're gonna in the second half we're gonna find out a bit more. But I think everybody's kind of waiting to see how in a very complex system this sorts out. And oh yeah, and we had the inventory builds too. We don't know how much didn't feed through because companies stockpiled inventories and still got to work through that. I'm just saying there's a lot of variables here, and I don't think anybody has a really good handle on it. It's really opaque, and I think in the second half rather than the first half, we'll start seeing some of the data on this. So I'm going with I don't know.
You had a great explanation, and I think that's the case. Joe, you said you don't know. Steve, you said you don't know. So I think everybody wants to look smart, even though they don't know, And behind closed doors, they may say it. So here's what I'm going to propose. We all just walk into the theater, sit down in the seat, cross our arms, and wait to see what's going to happen in the second act, because that's the only option we've got.
You're absolutely right, man. Listen, Steve, nobody's good at this stuff, the macro stuff, man. There's a reason why socialism and communism didn't work. I always find it amusing, actually. You listen to economists, particularly people that are more conservative or libertarian, and they talk so confidently about what their outlook for the economy. But yet they would tell you that there's no way that a group of people can get together and plan the economy because there's too many moving parts. And yet they're happy to look at all those moving parts and go, here's what's going to happen. So it's ridiculous when you think about it. Look, the way we do things is we look at the markets to get a sense of trends. That's all you can really do. You look at the market again, as Soros said. And by the way, if you're out there going, "Oh, I'm not gonna listen to Soros, he's some left-wing dude," you're freaking nuts. Freaking whatever works, man. I don't care what his politics are. If the dude is good, okay, he's made a lot of money in his life in markets. Let's not discount it because he happens to be more to the left of center than right. Who cares? Anyway, so I do that. I've been doing it my entire career. That's what I do to figure out the economy as best you can. And all it does really is give you kind of directionally. It doesn't tell you magnitude or anything. It doesn't tell you a whole lot. But the two big things we look at is, again, the markets. What are the trends? Let's get on those trends. Let's be sure that we're not fighting the trends. You don't want to be fighting stuff. You want to be in tune with the market. It's kind of like you want to be be comfortable. And the other thing is you got to look at sentiment. And that's where right now, for instance, we're a little bit cautious right now. Why? It doesn't have anything to do with the economy. It has to do with the fact that everybody's buying stocks for whatever reason at all-time highs with all this uncertainty. It is that people are really exuberant about the stock market. And it's not just here, it's also outside the United States. And we can judge that in a bunch of different ways. And we do. So people are a little too excited about things right now. When people get excited, we get a little worried. But does it mean the market's going to crash? No. Does it mean we're going to have a bear market? No. It just means people are a little too comfortable here. Markets are not intended to make you comfortable. That's not what they do. So we back off a little bit. We're doing some things in our accounts where we're backing off a little bit, just taking a little money off the table, be a little more conservative because everybody else is not being conservative. That's really what investing is all about, is trying to figure out what is the time when I want to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. When everybody's on one side of the boat, I'm going to get on the other side. And that's really what investing is all about. And that's what we try to do. It's not perfect. It's not easy. But that's really what the essence of this thing is. So listen, I don't know what's going to happen with the economy. I don't know what's going to happen with tariffs. I don't know what's going to happen with inflation. I don't know any of those things. I can tell you what the market believes, and that's really all that we can do. And so look, right now, market says, inflation's coming down. Nominal growth is coming down, by the way. And we know that, and interest rates are pretty stable. And what's happened is, we told you guys, everybody out there listening, we told you this, I don't know, months ago, a year ago, whatever. Nominal GDP and the 10-year Treasury note yield are going to converge. Well, guess what? They have converged. That's what they're supposed to do. And now they will diverge because that's what they do. And then we'll figure out what that means for the future. In the meantime, you're right, Bob. We're just going to watch the play.
For anybody who's watching and hasn't done it, please make sure you sign up for the newsletter. And Joe and Steve, save me a seat. I'm going to the lobby to get popcorn.